You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Corby.
What are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today, we're going to talk about Amazon ads. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think, Keith, that you are probably a bit of an expert on ads. Am I right or wrong?
I hate to use the word expert, but I definitely have. I have done a lot of trial and error, and I've spent a lot of money, and I've made quite a bit of money using Amazon ads. So I'm well versed in, I guess, is the best way to put it. So one thing, I'm excited about this because I get asked about Amazon ads all the time. One thing that I do want to clarify right off the top is we will be talking mostly about Amazon ads for authors, which is, using KDP. Depending on what you're using it for, if you're using it for Amazon merch or a seller's account or vendor's account, you have access to different types of ads within the Amazon ads dashboard. But so when we're talking about ad types today, we'll probably be focusing more on what authors have access to. But that said, the other stuff, like as far as the analytics and all of that, it's the same regardless of what platform you're using and what type of ad you're running. So so I mean, if you're not into books and you're listening or you're watching, there's probably still going to be something in here that you can take away. If you are into books or you're interested in getting into that, well, then I guarantee you there's going to be stuff that you can learn from this. So,
Absolutely. And I think that when I first started learning all about ads for Amazon KDP, I used to watch someone called Tamara T on YouTube, and she does ads for Amazon FBA, but I could really understand what she was saying. It made total sense. And I thought, well, Amazon KDP can't be that different to Amazon FBA in terms of ads. I'm not sure if I'm right there, but that's how I learned how to run my ads. And of course, there is also a free course that Kindlepreneur has brought out on ads, which is quite informative. But I always find that I haven't found a place to go to where I can learn more. I know how to set them up now.
Right.
But now comes the important bit, which is to really grow your business and run your ads and optimize them and all that. So that's where I get stuck. And I know a lot of people are, because they ask me, they want to know about what bits to place, how long should they give an ad, all those kind of things that personally I find hard to answer because to me, I'm still experimenting with ads. I'm still trying different things. And I also find that it depends very much on the kind of books that I have,
it
on
does.
the niches. So all of that has to be taken into account. So I know that people are looking for a formula that they can use for their ads. I've got the sneaky suspicion that doesn't exist because all of our books are different. All of our audiences are different. So I've got the feeling that's difficult to come up with a formula that works for everybody is going to be impossible. Don't you think?
I do. And just a quick shout out. Brian Cohen does a challenge. I think it's quarterly. It might even be more frequently than that. It's a free challenge. It's a 5-day challenge where, he will walk you through running ads. And I will say, just for those people who are into specifically no content, low content books, know going in that this is more geared towards written content as far as his free challenge that he does. But again, it's free. You still learn things from it. I mean, I've taken it, I've done it numerous times. Sometimes I do it just, again, as a challenge, just for a way to jump back into my ads and tweak them a little bit. But especially when it comes to, like you were talking about, the bids that, he'll talk about, bidding at 30 cents or 35 cents. And again, that's really geared towards written content. If you're doing it for no content, low content books, then you're not going to have to typically spend that much on a per click basis. for those people who don't know anything about Amazon ads, regardless of what kind of ads you run, it works on a cost per click basis, which means you'll run your ad, people will see your ad. You don't get charged until they actually click on your ad, and then you pay per click. So you pay X amount of cents per click, and that click means they're going to your product page. So, in the case of books, we're talking about it's going to your books sales page. And so when someone clicks on that, they get to your sales page. Then and only then are you actually being charged. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions and confusions that I know that people who are very new to Amazon ads get confused about is, am I paying every time someone sees my ad? And the answer is no. So the good thing is that means you can pick keywords or products or whatever that's going to get you more visibility and not worry about spending a lot of money. It's only when you actually get clicks.
But by the same token as well, you pay even if they don't order from you. So
that is completely true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it can be costly. I remember when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing, and I got quite a few clicks. And of course, Amazon recommends a certain amount for your ads. And I listened to Amazon, and I only found out afterwards that you can bid far less. You don't have to, especially for low content books, you don't have to take Amazon's recommendation. You can bid less than that. And I would say that it also depends on how busy the niche is. Of course, some niches that are more competitive, they will cost more. Right. You will have to pay more for your bids. Maybe you can explain a little bit. I don't know if you can maybe explain, how do bids work? I mean, why is there that competition between bids? Why do I have a better chance of getting my book seen if I bid higher? Is there a way you could explain that?
Yeah. First of all, the Amazon ads is run on the way it works is you say how much you're going to pay, how much you're willing to pay per click, and you were talking earlier about how your niche may be more competitive, and we can get to that in a second. But basically the way it works is you're saying I'm willing to pay up to this amount every time someone clicks on my ad. The way Amazon ads works, just like with pretty much anything has to do with Amazon, is their number one concern is relevancy, because their number one concern is the customer's experience. And so they want to make sure that they're showing ads that are most relevant to that customer. Because to be honest, the 10 cents a click, 35 cents a click, that's not making Amazon a lot of money. It's the sale that's going to make them more money. And so they want to put something in front of their customer that has the best chance of getting a sale. And so the way the bids actually work is, if I bid 20 cents for this particular keyword, and you are in the same niche as me, and you're using the same keyword, and you bid, let's say you bid 30 cents. So you're bidding 10 cents more than me. You may not necessarily win the bid, even though you're offering more money to Amazon. If my book in Amazon's algorithm is more relevant, I may still win. And I'm only going to have to pay what I bid. Conversely, if yours is more relevant and you bid 30 cents, you might win because it's more relevant. You don't have to pay 30 cents per click. You're only going to have to pay about a penny more than what I bid. So even if you're bidding, a higher amount, that's not necessarily what you're going to be paying. You pay approximately 1 penny more than the person that came in second place. Okay. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. But the question that brings up for me is, how do you get that relevancy? What does Amazon use? Is it the keywords for the book? Is it previous sales? What can make that book relevant in their eyes?
Well, the short answer is yes, all of that. So relevancy comes down to I mean, it comes down to the keywords or products, because you can do keyword ads, you can do product ads, whatever. How relevant that is to your book. Is it in your keywords? Is it in the, your title, your subtitle, in the back keywords that you have in there? Is it in the reviews that people have left on your book? Because Amazon, the algorithm searches through the reviews and looks for keywords there as well. So then again, that's the first spot, are the keywords. Then it's the clicks. If people see your ad and they click on it, then that means it's more relevant than the people that saw your ad and didn't click. And then next, it's the ones that actually buy. If you bought it, then that means it was even more relevant because you were willing to spend your hard-earned money. And then the most relevant are the ones that have, unfortunately, more reviews, because more reviews means not only that people spent the money on it, but they actually took the time to review it. And especially if those reviews have those keywords in it, again, it all works together to show how relevant your book really is to whatever the keyword is that you're bidding on, or whatever the product is that you're bidding on.
That's so interesting. And I know some people have mentioned that they don't run ads unless their books have reviews. Mm-hmm. And I kind of don't follow that. I still advertise my books, especially when they're new books. I do advertise them. Am I doing the wrong thing? But I feel I am getting sales that way. So I can't be doing the wrong thing, I guess.
No, you're not. I mean, you're not necessarily doing the wrong thing. I mean, it's kind of which came first, the chicken or the egg, I run ads to books when they first launch as well, because it's a good way to get that relevancy that you're looking for. Just know that, by understanding how the bid system works and how relevancy works, the more relevant you are, the more reviews you have, basically the cheaper you can get those ads, because I can bid significantly less and still get it because I'm more relevant. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with running, but I have heard people who say, I don't run ads until I have at least 15 reviews. And, while I would say that that's, a rule that you can go by, you don't have to, and again, a lot of it does depend on your niche and the type of books you're putting out. In general, puzzle books, no content, low content books typically have less reviews than, a written novel. And so you can probably get away with not having any reviews and still not paying a super, high bid cost per click if you're running ads to it, even if you don't have any reviews.
Yeah, that clears it up quite a lot for me. And I just feel that there is no, like I said earlier, no formula for it or something that I can advise everybody to do. But I think the way you've just explained it helps a lot to understand ads and how Amazon runs ads or what they want to achieve with the ads. And I think the more we learn about that, the better, because we can then adapt our ads strategy to that. So that's been really helpful. And you mentioned something about the niches as well. So would you say that low content books are cheaper to run as, for ads? I imagine they are, because
as a general rule, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Running to a no content and low content book, you just have less competition, because most people don't do that. A lot of times they, when they price their books, they're pricing it to where they're only making $1 or $2 off each one, because they want to be competitive. And instead of, everybody working together, they're just kind of fighting for the bottom of the barrel, unfortunately. And which we could have a whole nother episode on that. But because of that, a lot less people run ads to it. Whereas, there's a lot more profit in running ads to a written novel. So there's that. But another thing is, it's okay. So there's a couple of things. One is when we're talking about there not being a set standard, a set, do this, and this. And unfortunately, that's the case. I can't give you 5 steps and say you're going to be successful every time, but I can give you a few things that if you're just starting out in not even just starting out in books or just starting out in whatever you're doing, but even just in this niche or just running ads in this niche, what you can do is you can run a what's called an automated ad, an automated targeting ad, which means what I typically do it for keywords, but you can do it on products too. And basically what you're doing is you're allowing Amazon and their algorithm to decide what keywords or products you're going to target. And so there are people that absolutely say never use them. And I don't suggest using them on an ongoing basis. But when you first start out, there is one feature to that is absolutely like a game changer. And that is you can go after it's been running for a while and you're seeing some, and when I say a while, maybe a couple weeks, you can go in and see what people are actually targeting, what they typed in to search that made them find your ad. And then you can use those keywords in your manually targeted keyword ad, where you go in and say, okay, this is it. And we were talking about before how some niches are going to be more competitive and you won't be able to get super cheap, ads or super cheap clicks, but you can, if you focus on those keywords that you found out in your automated targeted ad and you find the ones that are less competitive. You don't have to go out there to make $1 million. You can find what some people call the low hanging fruit, ones that are consistent, that people are looking at, that are converting to sales, but they're less competitive because maybe they're typed less frequently. But when they are typed in, your book will be more relevant to it. So it's going to cost you less. And because it's less competitive, you can start with a lower bid as well. And so, again, that's the only time that I personally use Amazon, the automated ads. And because, like I said, it's a game changer. And I still use them to this day when I jump into a new niche and I might not know, I may have some ideas on keywords to use, but I typically, when I do a keyword ad, I like to have a minimum of 200 keywords when I'm first starting out. And so maybe I don't have that many. So I'll run an automated targeted ad to get some more keywords, to find out exactly not just what else people are typing in and how they're typing it, because how people search changes. What people are putting in their keywords to find your book 6 months ago may not be word for word what they're typing in now. And so, that's a great way to get more familiar with, even if it's a niche that you've been in, but maybe you haven't run ads in a while. Run an automated targeted ad for a month and see what new things are popping up, new terms, new, long tail keywords.
That's very interesting. And you said you like to have about 200 keywords for your ads. I don't know if I can think of that many. So is that something that you should do? Definitely have as many keywords as possible. What if the keywords aren't that relevant in that case? Because, there's certain.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely
trying to find
again, and there's some in the industry, there's some people that will argue one way or the other. You can have as many as 1,000. That's the most that Amazon will allow on a particular ad. You can always run another ad with another 1,000 if you had that many. But relevancy is obviously, like I said, is important. But that said, some of the ones that I get, and I use Publisher Rocket if I can't think of any other ones. And the key is making sure that you go to the AMS ad. He still has it listed as AMS ads, but the AMS ad tab in there, not the keyword tab, because it's different. But sometimes it's phrases that I never would have thought of that are the ones that work the best for me. So I try to be when I first do an ad, I try to be as specific as I can. But if I don't have that 200 minimum for me, I mean, that's just a me thing. But if I don't have a minimum of 200, again, I'll go to Publisher Rocket, see what other ones I can come up with. And even if some are, I'll go through and I'll look at them and I'll say, okay, this one's kind of questionable, but but I'll leave it in and I'll just keep an eye on it. That goes back to knowing your analytics, looking at the analytics and understanding what everything means, which, I mean, we could do a whole nother episode on deep diving on the analytics, but knowing what everything means and looking at those ones that are maybe a little more obscure, little less, on the nose, as far as relevancy. And if they're getting clicks, which means they're costing you money, but they're not getting sales, I do not wait too long before I pause those, as opposed to ones that I know are more relevant. Also, one thing to keep in mind when it comes to the biggest difference between keywords, when it comes to keywords and for your book in KDP and keywords with Amazon ads, is that on Amazon ad or in KDP, you cannot target other authors and you cannot target other books. You cannot do that in KDP. You can do that in Amazon ads. And so if you can't think of other relevant keywords, other authors, their books, those are great keywords that you can put in there to kind of fill those out. And you might be surprised at how many, actually end up turning into sales.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting, because what I tend to do is I tend to do product ads with against other books.
Right.
I'm not sure I actually have tried that with a manual ad and then just adding the author name or the other book title. What do you think about product ads? Are they something you consider as well?
Yeah, I definitely use product ads. It really comes down to those. That's when I'm very, very specific with my ad. If you're going to do a product ad, and for those people who don't know, basically you're literally doing what it says. You're finding another product, a comparable product to yours that you think you can outperform, and you're saying, this is what I want to target. So when people go to this book, they're going to see my ad. And so, you need to make sure that be honest with yourself. I know that's your book, baby, but you need to be honest with yourself. Can you really compete with that? Because if they click on it, you're paying. So, you need to make sure that you're being smart about that and realistic. But one thing I tend to do is when I run an ad, I'm very specific and only run typically one or two products per ad. So I'm very drilled down, very focused. But yeah, I mean, I use the product ads. What I do when I'm actually coming up with the text for my ad, like the actual ad copy, is if I know what product I'm going to target, I go into their reviews, I go to their 1s and 2 stars, and I find out what people are complaining about, and I put that in my actual ad copy. So I say, are you tired of blah blah blah? And if someone reads the reviews on books and they see that people are complaining about that on this book, and my ad is telling them it's not in my book, I've got a much better chance of getting that click.
That's very interesting. So you actually create your own ad copy. You don't just let.
I always do, because you've got two options when you run Amazon ads. You can do standard, which means no ad copy, or you can add your own custom text. There's no text that Amazon will do. It's either no text or your custom text. Even on automated ones, I always do custom text, because otherwise you're leaving your book cover, your title, and your price to be it. And it might say the number of reviews you have, but that's it. I mean, so adding that extra copy, because when people buy, many times they buy based on emotion. And so I can only give so much, draw so much emotion from you using my book cover and my title and my author name. But I've got 150 characters to where I can really, really narrow down and really drill in and draw those emotions out of you to increase the chances of you clicking on that ad.
Yeah, that's such great advice. I haven't done that before, I have to say. So that's one thing that I will change with my ads.
Yeah, that's something that I do 100% of the time.
Really?
I think probably after, the first ads I ran, probably the first 2 or 3 ads I ran, I did standard with no custom text. The first time I did custom text,
Mm.
I never turned back.
Wow.
It was a day and night difference for me. Even within the same, like I literally would copy the ad. Like I would do the exact same ad, but just have the custom text, and it outperformed day and night. And so from that point on, I mean, and like I said, that's, you know, the rationale behind it just makes sense. You know, you're giving them more reasons to click by putting in, you know, some kind of custom text. You're speaking to them instead of it just being, especially nowadays when there's ads everywhere. You know, if they feel like you're speaking to them, especially if it's a niche that you know, that you understand, you know, the lingo, you know, like for example, softball's one of the niches that I'm in. You know, I know that in softball, what most people would call a home run, softball players call a dinger. You know, by putting little terms like that in there, they feel more invested, they feel more interested in it. And again, people buy on emotion.
That's very true. Very good advice. And do you choose one book per ad, or do you group books together and then run an ad if they're all in the same niche or the same sort of, how do you deal with that? Or do you just run one ad per book?
Okay, so if I have a series, I will do one of two things. Sometimes I'll do both. One thing I will do is I will run an ad to the first book in the series, or whatever if it's a series, like a written series, you know, then obviously I'll do it to book one. If it's, let's say a puzzle book, or where if it's not a continuation series, if they don't have to read it in a certain order, then I may just pick the one that has the most reviews, the one that maybe has the best cover, the most appealing topic, whatever, and then I'll run ads to that one. And again, you can actually, and again, this is more of a deep dive into it, but you can really increase your bids, because then you got read through where people, they're clicking on your ad one time. If they buy, there's a much better chance they're going to buy your other books. And so you're willing to pay a little bit more to get them into that series. But another option I'll do is, and sometimes I do these at the same time, is a sponsored brand ad, where I'll basically have, I think they allow, it's either 3 or 5. I sometimes I don't even pay attention to what I'm doing. I just do it because it's a habit. I've been doing it for so long. To where you can show off all the books in your series, or a good amount of the books in your series. And also the sponsored brand ads, they show up, you know, as a normal ad just shows up on the, kind of looks like just a regular book on the page. It's just says the word sponsored on it, and might have the extra text if you put the custom text. But a brand ad is like a banner. And so it takes up a lot more real estate, is a lot more visible. Plus you've got more books, you know, more eye candy, if you will, to help sell your book, you know, plus if you've got a logo, or you know, your brand name or whatever. So brand ads are definitely ads that I run as well.
Great. So I know we've got a lot of listeners who publish low content books. So could you theoretically put 100 notebooks under one ad, or 100 planners, or that kind of thing? Or should you focus more on one book and then just advertise that one book? What do you think about that?
If they're in the same series, I would say you can definitely do a product brand ad, or a sponsored brand ad, if you have access to it. Because I know some people have access to different ad types, and Amazon ads is always kind of tweaking and giving people, you know, option, you know, here's one type, and then they take one away just to kind of see what works best. And so if you have access to sponsored brand ads, you can do that. When you're selecting actual products that it's going to go on, I think the most you're allowed to pick is 5, I believe.
Right.
But even then, I typically, if it's a written book, I'll do, you know, like I said, the brand ad, I will include the whatever 3, 5, whatever it is, whatever's shown in there is what I will do, because especially if it's in a series, they'll find the rest. You know, if they really like it, they'll find the rest. They can always go on your Author Central page, and if you don't have an Author Central page, what are you waiting for? You know, they're free. But that's what I do. But for no content, low content books, like I said, especially if it's like line journals or something like that, I would just focus on one, maybe your bestseller, maybe the one that's got the most unique aspect of it, because that's, if it's something different, and try, and you can run multiple ads. You're not going to be competing with yourself, and so just find, maybe run a product ad with this one and a brand sponsored ad which includes these three, and then maybe a manual keyword sponsored or a keyword ad to to this other one. The thing with no content books is, like I said before, your margin of profit's a lot smaller. And also when you're doing something that has an ebook version, you can, your profit margin is a lot higher, because I only need to, if let's say I'm getting 70% royalty, as long as my ACoS, which again it basically just tells you how profitable, it's being, I only need it to be 70% or lower, and so I know I'm making profit. Whereas if it's a paperback book with KDP, it's 60%. So, you have a lot less wiggle room there. And so, and again, like I said, we're also, so many people price their books at, $5.99 or whatever, and they're making pennies per book. So, you have to realize what realistically you can afford. And then, I don't want people to never spend more money than you can afford to lose, I guess is the best way to put it. And so I would say when you're starting out, just do it to one book, maybe two in your series or in your niche. And because again, it's a learning, I can tell you what I've learned, over the last 7 years, but there's some things that are going to be different for you. I'm in a different niche than you are. I'm at a different level than you are. And so, you want to, and people just learn better when they do it themselves, and so I can tell you what hiccups are going to come along and what to do about it. But until it actually happens to you, you can easily forget that. So again, my biggest advice would be, don't spend what you can't afford to lose. And again, start out small. I would, if you're new to it, start out with, a small budget, $1 a day, $5 a day, whatever you can afford to lose. And then just run it to one or two ads. And like I said, especially if you're new to it, do the automated ad, see what people are looking for, what product, if you're doing an automated product ad, what products did they enter in, and to find that ended up finding your particular ad. And then once, then you can create your own manual ones after that. It's the same thing if you're doing a keyword ad, do the automated one first, see what they typed in, are they clicks, obviously they clicks or they wouldn't be registered, but see what they if they converted to a sale, and then, like I said, then you can build other ads after that. And then you can start doing it once you start seeing a profit and you understand why it's a profit, because that's the important part, is what you see is not nearly as important as what you learn and, what you learned from it. So even if it's a failure, what did you learn from it will lead to your future successes. So once you're seeing success and you understand why it was successful, then and only then do you have a better chance of being able to replicate it. And then once you can replicate it, then you can run it to multiple books. I don't like, if you have I'm just going to say puzzle book series, I don't run it to more than one book in a series. It's counterproductive. There's no sense in spending money. I mean, because it's a series, they're going to find the other ones. Just the fact that it says volume 2 tells them that there's at least a volume 1. And so there's no sense in running that many. I would rather you run that second ad to a second series or, completely different type of book.
That's totally understandable. I'm just thinking, for example, have you heard of lottery ads? A lot of low content book makers, they run lottery ads, which is basically taking all of your books, putting them in an ad, and putting a really low bid, and I mean really low, and then just see what happens. And the funny thing is, they do work sometimes. They do. I mean, you don't get lots of sales, but there's one that I did where I did get a few sales from that for very little money. The ACOS is something silly, like 5% or 3% in some cases. So have you heard of them before?
I've never heard of that. It's interesting. I mean, yeah, it can work sometimes. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So,
Yeah.
so but again, I think, I mean, I could see it working. I think the important part after that is, okay, what did you learn from it? You didn't make a lot of money off it, but you got a really good ACOS. So what can you do now to make that low ACOS, which the lower your ACOS, the more profitable it is. What can you do to make more money off of it? Because I mean, you can have, a great ACOS, but if you're only making pennies, then your time is worth more than pennies. So again, it's a matter of, okay, so now what? What's the next step? What do you do from that point on? How do you build that into something that's going to bring in more money? And again, a lot of it comes down to looking at the analytics, looking at what keywords did people type in, because if people typed in, if you look and you see what keywords they typed in to see that lottery ad, as you guys call it, then why not take that and find the ones that most consistently turn into a sale, and put that on just one book. And then you put that on one book, and and part of it's going to be experimental, because you don't know especially if you put 100 in there, you don't know which of those 100 really made the sale for you.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that's one reason why when I do especially product ads, I only do one or two books, because I want to know which one is the one that moves the needle. Because it's like in science, if you have too many variables, you're really not learning anything, because you're just confusing things. And so it's a really interesting, I might actually have to try that and see again what to do from that point on. Like you take the data, and what do you do to build on that? What do you do to, some people say double down or whatever. I wouldn't double down on the same thing, because again, you don't know what's really done. Maybe narrow it down into doing, okay, I'm going to take these keywords that I know converted and converted well, then maybe I'll run 4 ads, and those 4 ads, each one I'll have 25 of those books in it. So it's still the same 100, but at least you're narrowing it down to which 25 really made that sale for you. And then maybe, increase the bids, or increase your budget. And so, you can get a chance of getting more impressions, which impressions means people are just seeing it. And then, yeah, you get more data that way. So, I mean, it's not an overnight success thing. I mean, every once in a while you can catch, lightning in a bottle, but I mean, I've had ads that have gotten down to like 2% ACOS, which are super, super efficient. But they take a while to get there, and it takes iterations. I when I do my first, and Brian Cohen teaches this in his challenges, is, you do a basically level 1 ad, which is where you're just learning. And then and again, we can do this in another episode where we talk about the analytics, but where you drill down into, to making it more and more efficient ads. And then once they become, the more efficient they are, I mean, they're just making money, you're almost guaranteed, because of the amount of effort you've put into it, the amount of drilling down you've done. And then that for every $100 I put into this, which $100 a day sounds like a lot, which it is, but if I know that I spend $100 a day on this ad, but I know it's going to make me 1,000, I will do it all day long.
Here's a question: would you do it if you only get $200 back a day?
I would. I would, because I'm making, it's still a profit. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm making a 100% profit. But again, this goes back to, and I know I've said this before, but I cannot stress enough that, that when you run ads, always make sure that you have the budget for it. Make sure that, because even if I'm making $10,000 a day, if I can't afford that $100 budget, because KDP is going to pay me, months later, but their Amazon ads are going to take their money out now. And so you need to make sure that you have that money now in order to justify, the price point. And so again, I always, and there are no guarantees, things change. And so I always say, never budget what you can't afford to lose.
Absolutely. I think if I've learned anything today, which I've learned definitely, or I've kind of reinforced the idea that running ads is not easy. It takes time. You can easily spend a lot of money, and you shouldn't if you haven't got a budget for it. I agree with you totally there. You need a budget to run ads, and it's a budget that you can afford to lose, because there are no guarantees when you run ads, and that's the other big takeaway, I think. And like you said, I think we could do a whole other episode on optimizing ads and drilling down and all the others. And I think today we've covered more or less the essentials, or the main questions that I keep getting on my channel, for example. So I think I've learned a lot today. I think I've seen it from your perspective, which is always good to see it from somebody else's perspective as well. And it's also shown really that there are so many different ways of running ads, but it's also because there are so many different ways of creating books. Like we're not all fiction or non-fiction writers. There's the whole low content, no content section, which is completely different again. So yeah, that was a very interesting discussion, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I really want to again remind people is, there's, first of all, you can do it for as little as $1 a day. Amazon, the reason why I prefer Amazon ads, I've used ads on pretty much every other platform. I've used Facebook ads, Twitter ads, even Pinterest ads. Amazon ads, I prefer for multiple reasons. One is that I think it's the easiest to get started in. Also, it's usually the least expensive to get started in. But most importantly, it's what we call a hot audience, or warm audience, which means they're on Amazon to buy. That's why they're not on social media, trying to see what their third grade teacher's doing now. They're literally on Amazon to buy. And so it's a lot easier to just convince them to buy your product than if you're on social media and you have to convince them to step away from that social media, go to a site, buy something, and then convince them to buy yours. So that's my reason why I absolutely, especially when you're first starting out with ads, I always suggest Amazon ads to start.
Totally agree. I think if people go on Pinterest, sometimes they don't go on Pinterest to buy, but if they're on Amazon, they're definitely there to buy. So
they got their wallets out. They're ready. Yeah. They're ready. They just need you to tell them why. And that's another reason why I use the custom text, so I can give them a reason why, as they're scrolling, pick my book. So
yeah, perfect. That's a very good tip there. Yeah.
Well, this has been another great mastermind, Nuria. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even leave us a review and let us know what you thought. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Corby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.